Item 10B, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Norcal Pipeline Services for construction of the Chestnut Sewer Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $55,805 and approving a construction contingency of $11,195.
Mayor and Council, the Chestnut Sewer Main is, as you can see on the overhead here, is a 250 feet span of a 6-inch clay pipe between Cherry Avenue and Chestnut Avenue. And they're directly situated underneath two homes here. So as you can see, this is Chestnut, this is Cherry, and this is the span of the sewer main. This sewer main receives wastewater from approximately 320 homes in the Genevieve area. And in November 2010, a sanitary sewer overflow SSO occurred at this sewer main and caused significant damage to the backyards of several homes. Due to this incident and the fact that the sewer main runs directly underneath the residential properties, the homeowners of 4 homes have requested that this section of sewer main be rehabilitated to address the immediate need to prevent a further SSO on the properties. In the sewer master plan, it was identified that the Genevieve area as a capacity restriction area, and a future capital improvement project to construct a bypass sewer on Genevieve Avenue was proposed and expected to be completed in 2019. So even though this Chestnut Sewer Rehabilitation Project could be a temporary mitigation, it would avoid the risk of any future costly SSO for the city due to structural failure of this section of sewer main. And this project was included as a priority project in the fiscal year 2013-14 capital improvement program. Since the pipe is directly underneath the two homes, the open trench construction was not considered an option for the rehabilitation. And the city evaluated 3 trenchless technologies, which included segmental slip lining, pipe bursting, and cured in place pipe, or CIPP. The recommended option was CIPP, with the advantage being that CIPP requires minimal excavation, it has the least impact to the residents, and the sewer laterals could be re-established with remotely controlled robotic cutter from inside the pipe. So this is a diagram showing how the CIPP process works. Assuming that this is the manhole on Cherry and this is the manhole on Chestnut. So what you have is, imagine this lining to be a very long tube sock, which is made out of woven fiberglass material. And it is first impregnated with epoxy resin and then runs through an inverter machine, this piece of equipment right here, and inverted and introduced into the sewer main all the way to the other street, the manhole. And this is done by compressed air coming in to the inverter. After the liner is installed, there will be the second piece of equipment to bring in is a steam boiler. And the steam boiler the steam will be introduced into the liner, press it against the sidewall, and cures the pipe and fuse it to the pipe. So this is the cure in place pipe process. The city advertised the project in January of 2014 and received a single bid from Norcal Pipeline Services in the amount of $55,805. And this is slightly below the engineer's estimate of $64,000. The CIPP work is the specialized field, and contractors must have a special certification from the liner manufacturers in order to perform this work. And staff attributes the lack of response for this project due to the fact that there are only a handful of contractors in the Bay Area that are certified to do this work. Even though this technology, the CIPP technology, has been around for decades, this project will be the first San Bruno sewer rehabilitation project to utilize this technology. And if the results are positive, then staff anticipate that the CIPP would be included as a viable alternative for future capital improvement projects. For the fiscal impact, the bid price for Norcal's pipeline services was $55,805. Due to the extensive bypass pumping, traffic control, and the work within private properties required for this project, staff is requesting a 20% construction contingency in the amount of $11,195 in lieu of the standard 15%. The total recommended construction budget would be $67,000, and there are sufficient funds available in the approved capital improvement budget. With that, I'm open for questions.
Any questions for staff? Ken?
I'm just curious. It's an old technique, but it's the first time we're using it. Can you say anything more about it as far as, I mean, its reliability? Why isn't it used more often?
Well, a little bit more background about the technology. It was invented in England back in 1975, and then it was introduced to the U.S. in the mid-80s. So it has been in the United States and widely used for about 30 years. And as we pointed out earlier, in the previous master plan that was prepared in the year 2000, the condition assessment, CCTV, was not one of the key focus area. What we primarily did was completed a hydraulic study using the model to evaluate the capacity deficiency. One of the downsides for CIPP pipe is it does not increase the pipe. It does not increase the capacity. And most of the time, with the additional thickness of the liner, there will be a slight reduction of capacity. So with the capital improvement project that we implemented in the last 10 years being most of them were capacity deficiency project, the CIPP wasn't considered as an alternative.
Irene?
Yes.
I'm curious, how do you open the opening from the laterals to the sewer line?
Okay. If you can look at this picture here, assuming these are the manhole, one on Cherry and one on Chestnut. Mm-hmm. We do have two laterals coming in here, and this drawing shows one of them, a lateral. So after the lining is installed all the way through, it's closed up.
Right.
But because of the pressure, it forms a little dimple here up the lateral. And then a camera will go in and locate that dimple, and a robotic cutter knife will go in there and cut open this, reestablish the lateral. And then what they call a lateral sealer, the term is a top hat, and will be installed to permanently form the lateral connection. So that's why the advantage of CIPP is that it requires minimal excavation. With this particular project, with one of the lateral located underneath a wooden deck, and the second lateral under concrete pad, excavating them to reestablish the laterals, it's out of the question. So CIPP is the only feasible solution here.
Yeah, fascinating, thank you.
My last comment. So it says in the staff report that the residents, the homeowners, are fully apprised of this project and this option. So does this finally resolve the problems with this sewer main? Because I know it's been an issue for many years, and so and they're satisfied with with this option.
How being specifying this will address the short-term problem of preventing, minimizing the possibility of any SSO, creating that smooth interior of the pipe, which really would minimize the likeliness of any additional SSO. Still, in long term, this area was defined of a capacity deficiency area and will be needed a bypass developed on Genevan to address the overall area capacity issue. That this is a short-term problem, will solve the liability and the short-term risk of additional SSO. That's what that's what those property owners wanted, or that's what they are supporting this solution, with the understanding that the city in long term, not in that long term, that Genevan bypass has to be implemented before 2019. The design will start in 1 or 2 year maximum.
Thank you.
Michael?
To the chair, thank you. So, during the process, the two homes that have laterals going through this section, will they not be able to use their plumbing during that time?
Well, we anticipate that the overall construction will take about 3 days, three separate days, and the actual process of installing the liner, we estimate to be about 6 hours. So the first day, we will conduct a 6-hour sewer bypass dry run. So during that dry run, sewage flow from upstream on Cherry will be run by bypass pump down to Chestnut. During that period of time, the homeowners with the 2 laterals, they can continue to use their facilities. On the second day, when we're actually installing this liner for the 6-hour period, they will not be able to use the facilities. So the arrangements will need to be made. And the third day will only be a robotic cutter to install establish the lateral connection. So there will be no impact for the homeowners, right, to use of the facility. So the only time would be during the second day, about 6 hours of duration.
But once you put that sleeve in there, there's essentially no connection from their house into the sewer.
Until it was cut, yes.
So it's not
Yes.
just 6 hours, it's really
Until the next morning.
until you
That's
cut that
correct.
hole back in. And the
Yes.
bypass is really between manhole and manhole. But, okay, and I'm assuming the homeowners are
Yes.
aware that they'll be
Councilmember, you are
out of
absolutely
the
correct.
house. Okay,
That would be a day till the next morning.
okay. And I understand that in this particular situation, part of the issue was that the laterals basically are open into the house, and so when the backup started, everything just flowed out of there. There was nothing to prevent backflow into the houses, and those cleanouts that they have are essentially uncovered. And I'm wondering if there are any recommendations that were made to those homeowners in terms of improvements they could make to that part of the system I know we're doing what we can to keep that line flowing, but you can't guarantee 100% that there won't be a backup. And is there anything that the homeowners could do to prevent any backups from coming into their house rather than back into the manhole?
Councilmember, you are right. After the first SSO incident, during the discussion between the city and the property owners, was offered and recommended an alternative that a flow prevention device in these instances would be recommended. But it's their choice if they want to take that preventive action or not.
Okay. And then finally, the source of the last overflow was attributed to some foreign material being lodged in there, and I believe that foreign material was actually part of our system that got dislodged somewhere upstream. And I'm wondering, was the source of that material identified, and has that issue been addressed upstream so that we don't have to worry about at least that type of material flowing through again?
The answer is no, in the sense that you are, council member, again, correct. That was the conclusion at that time of the department, that the cause of SSO was some kind of clay material, which assumably came from somewhere from the system. But how the project manager presented, this main support a broader neighborhood, more than 300 homes. And if as a subcommittee, all of us were looking at that map with all of the structural deficiency of the system, and basically, if you look at in our master plan that map 4-2, which show the existing structural deficiency of the system, everywhere you see those red dots, that really mean that that piece of clay could have come from many of the upstream location. All of the known location, urgent structural needs in that area were already addressed, which was the most urgent. But you saw that structural deficiencies are all over in our system, and they are addressed in a systematic priority, from a priority point of view. Then this can happen anytime in any other part of the system until our whole system is not fixed and is not structurally more reliable and stable. But even then, no system is 100% SSO approved.
But within that portion that we know feeds this area, and based on the video that we have of the system and hotspots that we've identified, is there some likelihood that we have identified that area?
It is very likely. Is possibly since the last SSO, many of spot repairs were performed at that location, but it's impossible to say that, okay, that piece of clay really came,
puzzle that we could stick in there and say, yeah,
came from that location which already was fixed, or came from any other location which are still waiting to be fixed. And also, how was discussed at in prior occasion also, if you have a structural deficiency, not necessarily mean that a spot repair or a replacement of the spot has to happen. They are recommended many other means, use root control, repeated cleaning, maintenance, And of course, in the most extreme situation, you have just to replace that section of the pipe.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.